First contact at mining station Zeta-7 Marcus. Kane wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished calibrating the mining equipment on Station Zeta-7. The remote asteroid facility was his home for the past 3 years, a solitary posting that suited his preference for quiet work over crowded colonies. The steady hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of ore processors created a familiar symphony that had become his soundtrack. The emergency beacon shattered that peace like a hammer through glass. Marcus rushed to the communications console, his hands flying over the controls as distress signals flooded the system. Something had crashed on the asteroid's surface, and the readings showed life signs faint but present. He grabbed his emergency medical kit and pressure suit, muscle memory from his previous work as a field medic, kicking in despite years of mining operations. The crash site was a twisted mess of unknown, metal and crystalline components that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Steam rose from the wreckage, and Marcus could see movement inside the cockpit. Through the transparent material, he spotted her a being unlike anything in the galactic database. She was humanoid, but clearly alien, with skin that shimmered like mother of pearl and hair that seemed to flow like liquid starlight. What caught his attention most were the intricate patterns along her arms that glowed with a soft blue light, and the way her breathing came in sharp, pained gasps. Marcus worked quickly to extract her from the wreckage, his medical training overriding any concerns about first contact protocols. She was injured badly, deep gashes along her side, and what appeared to be severe burns on her left arm. Her alien physiology didn't match anything he'd studied, but trauma was trauma, and bleeding was bleeding. Back at the station's medical bay, Marcus began treating her wounds with careful precision. Her blood was a luminescent silver that seemed to sparkle under the lights, and her skin felt warm to the touch, almost fever-hot. As he cleaned and bandaged her injuries, she stirred, her large violet eyes opening to stare at him with an intensity that made him pause. "Easy," Marcus said softly, keeping his voice calm and soothing. "You're safe now. I'm Marcus. I'm going to help you." She said something in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whispered music. Her voice was beautiful, even weakened by pain. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but the gratitude in her expression was universal. As he finished securing the final bandage, she reached out with her uninjured hand and touched his wrist. The contact sent a warm, tingling sensation up his arm, and for a moment, he could swear he felt something in emotion that wasn't his own. Gratitude, yes, but something deeper. Something that would change everything he thought he knew about the universe. The alien was hurt, but she was alive. And somehow, Marcus knew that saving her was just the beginning. Unexpected revelations. The alien woman, who Marcus had started calling Stella in his mind due to her starlight-like hair, had been recovering in the medical bay for 2 days. She was a quick healer, much faster than any human, and her alien physiology seemed to respond well to basic medical care, despite their obvious biological differences. On the 3rd morning, Marcus found her sitting up in bed, examining her bandaged arm with curiosity rather than pain. When she saw him enter, she smiled, a genuinely warm expression that transcended species barriers. "Marcus," she said, pronouncing his name with a musical lilt that made it sound almost beautiful. He nearly dropped the medical scanner he was carrying. "You speak English?" She tilted her head, and the patterns on her skin flickered with soft light. "I learn quick. Your language. It flows through your mind when you speak. I can ... How do you say absorb it?" Marcus sat down slowly, his scientific mind racing. "You're telepathic?" "Not exactly," she said, struggling with the concepts. "I feel emotions, intentions. Your kindness when you helped me. It created a bridge. Language came with it." "That's incredible," Marcus breathed. "What's your name? Where are you from?" "I am Lirale of the Zenthari Collective," she said, her voice growing stronger. My ship was damaged fleeing from the Vrak Empire. They hunt my people because we possess something they fear. Marcus leaned forward, fascinated. What do you possess? Liralay's patterns pulsed brighter, and she extended her hand toward him. We are conduits for the life force of the universe. We can share memories, emotions, even knowledge through touch. But more than that, we can awaken dormant potentials in other species. Awaken potentials? Marcus asked, though something deep inside him already suspected what she meant. Your people, humans, you have incredible capacity for growth, for evolution. But you've forgotten how to listen to the universe itself. We can help you remember. She placed her hand gently on his arm. And suddenly, Marcus's world exploded with sensation. He could feel the asteroid's mineral deposits beneath them, sense the vast emptiness of space around the station, and somehow perceive the delicate balance of life force that flowed through everything. For a moment, he wasn't just Marcus Kane, lonely mining station operator. He was connected to something vast and wonderful. When the sensation faded, he found himself staring at Liralay in amazement. What did you just do to me? I showed you what you already possess, she said softly. Your species calls it intuition, but it's so much more. You have the ability to connect with the fundamental forces of existence, to understand the universe on a level that most species never achieve. Marcus stood up, pacing the small medical bay. This is why the Vrak Empire is hunting your people? Because you can unlock potential in other species? Liralay nodded gravely. They believe that only the strong should inherit the stars. They see our gift as a threat to their dominance. If species like yours learn to harness your true potential, the Vrak's empire of conquest would crumble. How many of your people are left? Marcus asked. Few, she whispered, pain flickering across her features. My ship carried the last genetic records of our species, along with the knowledge of awakening. The Vrak destroyed our homeworld last year. Marcus felt anger building in his chest, not just his own, but something deeper and more primal. They committed genocide because they were afraid of what you could teach others? Yes, Liralay said simply. And now they hunt the survivors. Marcus made a decision that surprised him with its certainty. Ben, we need to make sure you survive. And we need to make sure your knowledge doesn't die with you. Liralay's eyed. You would help me? Even knowing the danger? Marcus grinned, feeling more alive than he had in years. Lady, I just spent 3 years mining rocks by myself. A little danger might be exactly what I need. The hunt begins 5 days after Liralay's crash. Marcus's routine was shattered again this time by the arrival of 3 Vrak warships on his scanner. The massive vessels moved through space like predators, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. That could reduce his small station to cosmic dust in seconds. They found me, Liralay said, her skin patterns flickering with distress as she watched the scanner display. I'm sorry, Marcus. I've brought death to your doorstep. Marcus studied the approaching ships, his mind working quickly. Not yet. You haven't. How long before they get here? 6 hours, maybe 7, Liralay calculated. But Marcus, you don't understand. The Vrak don't take prisoners. They will destroy this station and everyone on it to prevent our knowledge from spreading. Then we'd better make sure that doesn't happen, Marcus said, moving to the communications console. I need to send some messages. To who? Liralay asked, confused. This is a remote mining station. Who could possibly help us? Marcus smiled grimly as his fingers flew over the controls. You'd be surprised how many friends a guy makes in 3 years of talking to passing ships. Miners, traders, even a few ex-military types. People who don't much like bullies. Over the next hour, Marcus sent encrypted messages to every contact he'd made during his time on the station. Some were simple traders who owed him favors. Others were more interesting, like Captain Rodriguez of the independent freighter Stormcrow, or the crew of the salvage ship Lucky Strike, who'd helped him fix his generator last winter. But the most important message went to Colonel Jessica Wright, his former commanding officer from his military days before he became a medic. Wright ran a small but efficient mercenary company called Steel Phoenix, and she'd been looking for good causes to support with a retirement fund. "You really think they'll come?" Lireley asked, watching him work. "I think humans have a very bad habit of showing up when someone needs help," Marcus replied, "especially when that someone is fighting against genocide." As they waited, Lireley began teaching Marcus more about the awakening process. With each session, he could feel his perception expanding. He started sensing the emotional states of the station's automated systems, feeling the flow of energy through the power conduits, even perceiving the approaching wrack ships as cold spots in the fabric of space itself. "Your species learned so quickly," Lireley marveled, as Marcus successfully manipulated a piece of equipment using nothing but focused intention. "It took my people generations to develop these abilities naturally." "Maybe that's because we're desperate learners," Marcus sighed. "When our backs are against the wall, humans tend to surprise people." 3 hours before the wrack ships would arrive, Marcus's communications console lit up with incoming signals. One by one, ships began dropping out of hyperspace around the asteroid-battered freighters, modified mining vessels, even a few military surplus fighters that had seen better days. "Marcus, you son of a gun," came Captain Rodriguez's voice over the comm. "When you said you needed backup against genocidal aliens, I figured you were joking." "No joke, Rodriguez," Marcus replied. "Just me, a wounded alien, and the chance to save a species from extinction." "Well," came another voice, Colonel Wright's crisp military tone, "when you put it like that, how could we say no?" "Steel Phoenix Squadron reporting for duty, Marcus. What's the plan?" Lireley stared at the growing fleet of mismatched ships surrounding the station, her patterns blazing with amazement. "They came. They actually came." "I told you," Marcus said, feeling a surge of pride in his species. "When push comes to shove, humans show up for each other. And right now, you're one of us." The wrack ships were still approaching, confident in their overwhelming firepower. They had no idea they were about to face something that had made humanity famous across the galaxy, their absolute refusal to give up when protecting someone they cared about. The hunt was about to become a battle, and the hunters were about to learn what happened when you threatened the wrong species' friends. Stand the wrack fleet closed in like vultures, their massive ships dwarfing the collection of civilian vessels that had answered Marcus's call. General Krodak, commander of the lead warship, opened a communication channel that crackled with arrogant authority. "Human settlement. You harbor a Xanthari fugitive." His voice rumbled through the speakers like grinding stone. "Surrender the Z. Alien, and your deaths will be swift." Marcus keyed the response. "This is Marcus Kane of Mining Station Zeta-7. The being you're hunting is under my protection. Turn around and leave, or we'll make you leave." The silence that followed was broken by harsh wrack laughter. "You dare threaten the wrack empire with your collection of scrap metal? We have conquered 1,000 worlds, eliminated dozens of species. What can you possibly do against us?" "Let us show you," Marcus replied calmly. What the wrack hadn't accounted for was human creativity under pressure. Over the past few hours, Lireley had been working with the assembled ship crews, awakening latent abilities in volunteers who stepped forward despite the danger. Captain Rodriguez found he could sense the weak points in enemy ship hulls. Engineer Thompson from the Lucky Strike discovered he could interfere with electronic systems through focused thought. Even old Colonel Wright developed an uncanny ability to predict enemy movements. The battle began when the wrack opened fire, their massive energy cannons lighting up space with destructive force. But instead of the easy slaughter they expected, they found their targeting systems mysteriously malfunctioning. Their precise formations fell apart as human pilots seemed to anticipate every move. Their shields fluctuated as awakened humans, somehow disrupted their power flows from impossible distances. "This is impossible," General Krotak roared as his flagship's weapons array shut down for the third time. "How are they doing this?" The answer came as Marcus's voice cut through the comm channels again, but this time there was something different about it, a resonance that seemed to speak directly to the soul. "You wanted to know what humans can do?" Marcus said, his consciousness expanded by Lirelai's gift, connected now to every defender in the ragtag fleet. "We adapt. We grow. We become more than we were because we have to, because someone we care about needs us to." The tide of battle turned as the awakened humans began working in perfect synchronization. Ships moved like a single organism, covering each other's weaknesses, striking with precision that defied explanation. The Vrak's technological superiority meant nothing against opponents who could sense their intentions before they acted on them. Lirelai, weakened but determined, had linked herself to the entire fleet through Marcus. Through their connection, every human pilot could feel the other's thoughts, share their skills, and combine their awakened abilities into something greater than the sum of its parts. General Krotak's flagship shuddered under focused fire from the human vessels. Systems that had functioned perfectly for decades suddenly failed as awakened humans reached out across space to touch the ship's vital components with their minds. "Impossible," the Vrak general whispered as his shields collapsed. "No species develops this quickly. No one adapts this fast." "You never understood," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of human determination. "We don't develop these abilities despite being threatened. We develop them because we're threatened. Because when someone tries to hurt our friends, we become whatever we need to be to stop them." The surviving Vrak ships began to retreat there. Commander's voice filled with something the Empire had rarely heard: fear. "This isn't over, humans," Krotak transmitted as his damaged fleet limped away. "The Empire will return in force. Let them come," Colonel Wright's voice cut through the comm channels. "We'll be ready." As the Vrak ships disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus felt the connection with the fleet slowly fade. But something had changed permanently. The humans who had been awakened would never be the same, and they would teach others. Lirelai collapsed against him, exhausted but smiling. "Your species never ceases to amaze me," she whispered. "In one battle, you've accomplished what it took my people centuries to achieve." Marcus looked out at the victorious fleet of civilian ships, crewed by miners, traders, and retirees who had just defeated one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. "That's humans for you," he said with pride. "Give us something worth fighting for, and we'll find a way to win." A new alliance 3 weeks after the battle. Mining Station Zeta 7 had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. A training center where Lirelai worked with human volunteers to awaken abilities that most species took millennia to develop. Ships arrived daily carrying beings from across the galaxy who had heard whispers of what had happened in the asteroid field. Marcus stood in what had once been his lonely communications room, now a bustling hub of activity. Engineers who could interface directly with machinery worked, alongside pilots who navigated by feeling the gravitational flows of space itself. The station had become a beacon of hope in a galaxy where the Vrak Empire's conquest had seemed unstoppable. "The Galactic Council wants to meet with you," Colonel Wright informed him as she reviewed intelligence reports. Her military company had officially taken up residence on the station, providing security for what they now called the Awakening Project. "Me?" Marcus laughed. "I'm just a guy who helped an injured alien. Lirelai's the one with the real knowledge." "Maybe. Right?" said with a knowing smile. But you are the one who proved that humans can learn to use these abilities in combat. You turned a collection of civilian ships into a fleet that scared the Vrak Empire. That's not something the galaxy's going to forget. Lirelei approached them, her skin patterns glowing with health and happiness. In the weeks since the battle, more Zentari survivors had emerged from hiding, drawn by the news that someone had successfully stood against the Vrak. The species that had been on the verge of extinction was slowly beginning to rebuild. "Marcus," she said, "I have something for you." She extended her hand, and in her palm rested a small crystalline device that pulsed with the same gentle light as her skin patterns. "This is a memory crystal containing everything my people learned about awakening abilities in others. Our entire knowledge, preserved forever." Marcus stared at the crystal, understanding the magnitude of what she was offering. "Lirelei, this is the cultural heritage of your entire species. I can't." "You saved my life," she interrupted gently. "You saved my people. You gave us allies when we thought we would die alone. This knowledge belongs to humanity now, as much as it does to us." Marcus took the crystal carefully, feeling its warm weight in his palm. Through his awakened senses, he could perceive the vast repository of knowledge contained within techniques for awakening dormant abilities, methods for teaching others, and most importantly, the philosophical understanding that came with wielding such power responsibly. The Vrak Empire built their strength on the belief that only the powerful deserve to inherit the stars, Lirelei continued. "But you've shown them something they never understood, that true strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down." Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system. "Marcus, you're going to want to see this. We've got incoming ships, but these aren't hostiles." They rushed to the observation deck to see a sight that took Marcus's breath away. Dozens of ships were approaching the station, not the warships of the Vrak Empire, but vessels from species across the galaxy. Peaceful explorers, trading consortiums, even representatives from worlds that had been conquered by the Vrak, but had maintained hidden resistance movements. "Word has spread," Wright observed with satisfaction, "about what humans can do when they're awakened, about what happens when someone stands up to the Vrak." A message came through from the lead ship, a elegant vessel from the Asari Confederation. "This is Ambassador Veltar. We come seeking alliance with the humans who taught an empire to fear. We come seeking the awakening." Marcus looked around at the bustling station, at the humans learning abilities that would have been considered impossible just weeks ago, at Lirelei and her surviving people who had found new hope among the stars. "You know what this means?" he said to no one in particular. "What?" Lirelei asked. Marcus smiled, feeling the weight of the memory crystal in his hand and the vast potential of the future ahead of them. "This means the Vrak Empire just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They didn't just try to commit genocide against the Zentari. They pissed off the humans." Lirelei laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "And what happens when you make humans angry?" "We don't just fight back," Marcus said, watching as ship after ship arrived to join their growing alliance. "We make sure it never happens again to anyone." The alien had been hurt, and what she gave him after the bandage had indeed left him speechless. But it wasn't just the crystal or the knowledge it contained. It was the realization that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the simple act of helping someone in need, and that such acts can change the entire galaxy. The Vrak Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. Now they would learn what happened when that fear turned against them, wielded by a species that had just discovered they were capable of so much more than they'd ever imagined. The human awakening had begun.